Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. We're starting the podcast with returning guest, Aubrey Barnes, a.k.a. Aubs, a.k.a. the man, a.k.a. the educator.
The educator who's been fired from like 2 teaching jobs in his career.
Such an educator that the education system can't even handle his ass. He's so high above everyone else. They're like, oh, we can't.
We're not worthy.
You know, I feel like that, not to deviate, but like I feel like that ends up happening a lot of times in the education system. Like not even from you, but like another good example is like Brett Weinstein. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No.
He was, I can't remember the university. It was a university out in the Oregon area or Portland area. Mm-hmm. And I think it was because of like the school wanted to have a day where it was like no whites. Like they were like, we don't want any white people coming on campus. And he's Jewish. So he's really against like all that kind of stuff. And he was like, no, I'm not doing this. And they ended up firing him over it. And I mean, I guess that's not really the same example as like kind of in a way, kind of the inverse of that. Cause I know you've talked on this podcast before, like how there was kind of like some racial things that you believe kind of led to your firing. But like, I feel like that is actually the case a lot of times. Like you find a lot of people who are in the education space and they kind of fly too high at the sun in a sense. Yeah. Like they end up like, they express themselves and their own views and they have like a very like logical, history-based, fact-based way of approaching it, but the education system doesn't listen to that. They're just like, get the fuck out of here. We don't want that shit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because like I will say too with that the last school that I got let go from, even though they told people that I like willingly left and all that, I could say it because I'm not under that school anymore.
Yeah, sure. Fuck it.
They was it. But I remember I talked to you about it and all that. But it was also because because again, I'm at a boarding school in Bettendorf, Iowa, which is like Bettendorf, Iowa. It's kind of like West Des Moines is more like the suburban, like rich people, right? Mm-hmm. That's what Bettendorf is to like Quad City. So like when you have me working at a school like that, where you have like these doctors, lawyers, whatever you will,
the elite.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna look kind of out of place.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's gonna happen. So that was definitely a part of it. But also, I'd also say too, like, again, just with how education set up, I'm like, if you put me under the system as an educator, I'm gonna be a terrible ass teacher. It's like you tell me I got to teach for 40 minutes math, 40 minutes science, 40 minutes social studies, no breaks.
You had to do like all these other different subjects?
Yeah.
Oh,
all as one teacher.
That's crazy.
All as one teacher, like math, social studies, science, English language. Only ones I didn't have to do were music and PE. That was it. But everything else I had to do. And for me, it's just like with how my ADHD is set up. First, I was like, I'm gonna get tired after. Like,
yeah, right.
It's like it's just set up for this. And just because like like I think sometimes there's this unrealistic expectation of like, oh, these kids have to be like almost geniuses by the time they live this. There must be sufficient in this to the others. Like that's not how humans work.
No,
like,
not at all.
It isn't like to say that all of them have to be at the same place or this desired place where not even the school, but even their parents may think like, oh, they should be here. It's like that's not realistic, Sure. If they don't understand this, I'm gonna take my time with it. But with that, you can't take time in a traditional school setting. So like I'm gonna be a terrible ass teacher. So part of it was too, I was just terrible at teaching in this sort of like systematic kind of way of like I can't do this. Plus, at that school I was going through, and you kind of know from the extent of like our conversations past,
sure.
Too, like while I was teaching too, I was going through like the separation and all that. So my mind's not even there and all that. So I think it was more nuanced there, but I would still say because the teachers that were fired after me too, because they let go teachers after me as well, who were really good teachers. Who like they weren't black teachers, they were both like white female teachers and all that, but
sure.
They still kind of had the same thing of like they just saw education in a different, more, I'd say in a more vital way as opposed to just like being fucking proficient at like these studies that students aren't going to need 10 years from now, and it's just like under that system I'm going to suck, but like when it comes to like what I do now with like using literary arts to teach students how to like be proficient in reading and writing, but also like mental wellness, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do great there because like those things matter, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's just such a. I mean, maybe. I mean, I kind of doubt it, but maybe part of it was like their just inability to find people like that or to set their system up like that. But like, there's no real world example where you would hire someone and then be like, okay, I want you to be proficient in like literally every single thing. Yeah. Which is what that sounds like they want you to do. Like if even like in a market, right? Like if you're finding a lawyer, you're going to find someone who's a really good lawyer. You're not just going to find someone who's like pretty good in everything, because that's just not going to work out. Like you want specialization. You want people who are like proficient in one topic, because then they can teach that topic really well,
and that's it.
And then that's it. And then that's like you get like the maximum amount of education. Like if you had, let's say you had like 5 people teaching, because like how my public schools was set up was like, it was, you had like a couple science teachers and then like a math teacher, and then you had which makes sense because like you have certain teachers who are really good at this thing, and then they can really help everybody with this thing.
Yeah.
Versus that system you're describing, which like when I went to private school, it was a lot like that.
Yeah.
I was like younger, I was like elementary, middle school, but like it was like that. They had one teacher for every grade.
Yeah.
And then like they taught everything. And like, yeah, it's just not a realistic system. It's kind of a stupid system.
Yeah.
It really goes against the whole idea of education, which we talked about playing this podcast, but like the whole idea of like actually teaching people, enabling your students to actually learn. And like, you know, I think honestly people just have different interests. Like I think it would be a way better way better education system if you had people kind of pick like, okay, this is the field I want to get into. This is something that really sparks my interest, because I think the modern method of education actually de-sparks that. Actually, not, what's the opposite of igniting? Taking out.
You said the opposite of what?
The opposite of like igniting something.
Oh yeah, it's kind of diluting.
Diluting it. Yes, exactly. Like it dilutes that quality of education.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just really problematic.
Yeah, and I mean, it all makes sense when you kind of just think about it from like a historical perspective. Like the whole idea of school came from the church. Literally, you know, them doing like Sunday school and all that, and then them being like, oh, well, why don't we just make this a bigger thing where we're like literally just indoctrinating kids, not just through religious beliefs, but in all how we think life should be, and then making that the thing. But like as humans kind of grow and all that, it's just like, you know, there's too much, like we know too much about the nuance of like the human experience just to be like, oh well, this is like going to work for all our students. But unfortunately, and I will say like it's cool seeing that there's schools who understand that and are trying to like change things.
Yes,
but you know, you're always going to have like, for me personally, I think like as long as you operate under the system, it's gonna sound the same, whether like regardless of how you try to change it, you know, unless you completely like say like screw the model and we're gonna like do it this way, you know, it's always gonna like peek its face in if you stick to like that model, you know.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I want, because you know, as we've talked about, obviously you're an educator and you've been in education. What is your view on the current state of education as it stands, and like how AI might play a role into that?
Oh yeah,
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, like the current state just was kind of like, you know, in regards to like the Department of Education be ran by somebody who doesn't know much about education like that, and just kind of like where we like have all these programs being taken away and all that. For me, it's like, you know, I guess part of me kind of like sees, and I kind of get the uproar, but for me, I was like, I think in my mind, like education was always heading that direction, you know.
Oh yeah.
Trump's just really like expediting the process, literally, like at some point, you know, with how the system is, like the system's never really been about kids and their development in and of itself. If it was, then you wouldn't find people who are like super antagonistic to like students learning about like the different like spectrums, as they call it, when it comes to relationship, when it comes to like the LGBTQ thing, which like, mind you, there's nuance to that, because some people can get really weird about it and like almost indoctrinate kids with it, which that part I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah,
like, that's super duper weird. But like,
yeah,
but more so being like, you know, this is the thing, whether or not our personal beliefs, we gotta objectively agree, like this is a thing in the world, and if it's in the world, we gotta show how to kind of navigate these new things, because that's what it means to be a human. Just kind of like look at things and progress, you know. And if the education system was about that, there wouldn't be pushback on kind of like understanding these things that kind of like progress as we become more human. But it doesn't. We literally have schools that are making pre-classroom prayer a thing. Or just
yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, they're trying to do that in a couple different states.
History narratives that they're uncomfortable with being pulled, and that part is just like, so you're pulling away something that's objectively true just because like your feelings. You kind of sound like the people that y'all talk about being like snowflakes and all that. Like y'all kind of sound soft, and that you can't sit with like uncomfortable things. You know, but for me, I'm like, it was always going to happen. You know, it was always going to happen with how education is. You know, but with it, you know, when you kind of think about AI and all that stuff, like, again, with on the same token, like technology without advances, like, we should have known that was going to come at some point of just having like the supercomputerism that kind of makes it where like you have to do less work. And for me, like, as an educator, like, how are you going to tell the difference between that? Like, we're probably going to have some kind of technology in the future because we always do, but there's where that technology comes out, you're always going to have a juxtaposition of it, kind of like opposing it. And for me, I'm like,
100%.
Why not just learn how to use it?
I agree.
Or teach kids how to use it, you know? Let kids, like, you know, if you have a paper, you know kids are going to, like, write an AI paper out of that. How are you going to integrate? How are you going to just be ready for that? Because you're not going to stop it. Like, how the fuck are you going to stop a kid from doing what they want like that? It's more so like, how can you use this to kind of create a teachable moment? But, you know, if you're a teacher who kind of just came in with the intent of just being subservient to kind of like how education is presented to you, not questioning it, more like a traditional role, you don't have the creativity to think about how to kind of fit these things into what you do as an educator, because you just went in as like, oh, I'm just here to teach, and that's it, and just be that, you know. And I think that's kind of like educators who kind of like are more traditional. That's where we're going to kind of see like kind of who kind of takes this and allows it to be like, okay, how do we use it in this day and age? How about we ask ChatGPT how to use it to educate our kids?
Well, you know, so I talked to Grok, which is like the Twitter version of AI.
Yeah.
I've talked to him about this, him, her, it, whatever. I guess I refer to it as a him. You know, it's funny. I actually, quick side tangent. One time, I think I posted this. I was like, create a portrait of who you think I am, and I was like an Asian woman. And I'm like, goddamn. That was the biggest burn I've gotten all year. I was like, oh shit.
Maybe it's just like AI just has this consciousness of knowing like, oh, in a past life you're a reincarnated like 7-year-old Asian woman who lived in Seoul.
Now that would be scary. That would be scary if it was conscious. But no, man, I kind of asked it. I was like, you know, what do you think about like AI's role in education? And I think education is way outdated. I mean, for several reasons, but like especially when looking in the face of AI, because I mean, I guess let's just play devil's advocate here for a little bit. Like, what do you think about the argument of how people, you know, think, you know, ChatGPT or AI makes students lazy, or that they are not learning these, you know, quote unquote, like critical thinking skills, or like that the need to memorize is no longer there? I guess, like, what's your response to that?
Yeah. I mean, a lazy student's going to be a lazy student whether it's there or not. That's my whole thing. It's like, because, you know, you have students out there right now who know of ChatGPT, but are not lazy students. And does that mean that they don't use it? No, but they probably use it in a more constructive way, knowing that like they probably have been, you know, instilled because of their upbringing, coaches, parents, or maybe they're even themselves, like, of just doing the work themselves, you know? So like, for me, like, I feel like that's just kind of an excuse thing of just like, you know, like if you have a lazy student, you're going to have a lazy student.
Yeah.
You know, lazy student who's going to find a loophole any kind of way, you know? So like ChatGPT just gives them a new space to be that, but like, I don't think it makes students lazy, you know? And I think part of us, again, and those who even, you know, even in that, if you do have a student who's like more hardworking and finds themselves being more lazy because of this, or have more lazy tendencies, more so, it's more so a question of like, okay, you as the educator, how are you going to like be there and be like, okay, don't use it like this. Use it like this so that you can still have these moments of like, kind of like doing critical thinking for yourself or comprehension for yourself. Cause like at the end of the day, that's the human work and all that, you know? So, you know, I think that's just the job of the educator, you know, And it's just like, I think, and not to say that we need to do more as educators, because again, like what we're saying and all that, with just like how we have to balance all of these different topics that, if we're honest, none of us know even 50% about. We just kind of know the day of or the day before. You know, we already have a lot there and burnt out, so it's not more so like you got to do more work on top of that, but more so like replacing that work, you know, of just like, you know, instead of like in a perfect world, like of just kind of like outdated education, we'll kind of take away from that old system and be like, okay, like what are the things that kids are paying attention to now? Like a lot of them are online. How do we, and are making jobs online by like being content creators through TikTok, Instagram and all that, as opposed to telling them that that's BS. How about we create something to show them like, okay, this is how you make this a business model out of this thing that you're utilizing. And if you're doing a lot of speaking to people, public speaking skills, how do we teach them these things better? How do we teach them to take care of themselves and not be so like obsessed with this thing that you're on at 24/7? Because that's the big problem with kids and all that, which I will say is an issue. Like students on technology 24/7, but they're just like us, you know. I wouldn't say it's any different. You know?
I think that is a fair criticism of that. Is like you have this technology that's like quote unquote unfettered, like whatever. You do, like if it's like we were talking about this in the last episode where there was some tribe or whatever that I mean, they weren't like unfamiliar with humans, but they had basically like distanced themselves away from society. Yeah, and they gave them a bunch of cell phones, and like within days they were just all hooked on porn.
Wow,
it's like so there is a caveat to that where it's like you can see like where if you kind of give these kids this technology that they're just gonna watch porn, play video games all day, right? Like they're not actually gonna use it for that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, my personal view is that I think in a way that will almost divide, like that will give us a clearer image of like the kids who are going to succeed with this and the kids who just aren't, you know. The kids who, I mean, and this isn't bad, but like the kids who are just going to be the construction workers or just clean toilets, you know, that's not just demoralize them, but like people have certain skill sets, right? And like if you have a certain skill set where you're like, oh, I want to use ChatGPT to learn, to like, hey, like I want to write this essay, or like I am like thinking about these things, like, and then I can just put my prompt in and it'll give me like a nuanced take on it. You know, it, like you said, it's like learning how to use it. And also I think there's a bunch of hypocrisy because all these teachers who they get mad at their kids cheating with ChatGPT, they're always using ChatGPT for their work. Yeah. You know, they're all like, they're getting their job done with it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
or even the ones that don't, you know, they're going onto these websites to figure out, how the fuck do I teach this tomorrow? Right. How the only difference is between that is that you use a search engine, which is ChatGPT in its most basic sense.
That's the most hilarious thing to me, dude. Is like we've been using Siri for like a decade. Just like Siri this, and nobody had a problem with that. But then when it got a little better, then everybody started freaking the fuck out. It's like, dude, you bought into this for like a decade plus, and now you're getting pissed about it. Like,
that is evolving. You know, like exactly how education should evolve. But exactly, again, we're all. Damn, we only know how to do paper and pencil. We just graduated from doing Scantrons a few years ago, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, in my mind, that's why I think it should be privatized. Is because then you have these avenues where like then we actually see, okay, we have an actual supply and demand. It's like, okay, like these kids who are like living in the model of like, oh, you need to go to class, and like if you have a question you have to raise your hand, and then you have to wait for the teacher to come to you, and then like there's a good chance that he or she isn't really going to give that great of an answer. Whereas you could just literally just put it into ChatGPT. Like I'm sorry, but like I'm willing to bet. Actually, honestly, I'll bet all my money on this that ChatGPT, like one phone of ChatGPT, ultimately surpasses like an entire school full of educators and administrators. Not to say that those educators and administrators don't have value or that they can't bring something to that, but like objectively there's just no competing. Like, and that's not like people view that as like a problem. I think people, especially in a public model, they're like their job relies on this. So they're going to do everything they can, whether legislatively or just like with how they promote themselves or what they talk about or whatever. They're going to do everything they can to keep that job. Yeah. Instead of just leaving it up to the market and people being like, okay, you know what? Like you don't have the value that you have, or you don't have the value that you think you have. Yeah. And you need to learn to work with this new technology or you're going to get left in the dust. And like people can think that sounds sad or whatever. But I think in the end, it's going to create better education for everyone. It's going to enable everyone to have a better sense of education.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, like I don't think, and I even question myself with this more so too as I'm thinking about it. But like, I don't think we'll ever get to a place where like schools, or like I shouldn't say schools, but like community gatherings of like kids learning. I don't think that's ever going to stop, because it, like you need
there's
kids,
some kind of human interaction.
You got to have human interaction, but obviously, I mean, part of me is just like, but we're growing so individualized. We're just like, is that, But I guess for me, like I dangerously assume that we're never going to get there. And with that said, like the educator still has like a space of like relevance in that, because like the Chat GPT, they're not going to deliver it to the kids. Like maybe you're just that be the thing that creates the thing,
sure,
and maybe makes your job a lot more easier. Where you're not up away from family and up early in the mornings trying to figure out how the hell to teach Pythagorean theorem and simplify it for fifth graders, which is fucking insane. But at the end of the day, you're the person who's going to be able to deliver that, and like what ChatGPT doesn't have that you have is nuance. Like ChatGPT is like, when you type something in there, like they're gonna have it for like, okay, this is just for the general kids, unless you type for like special need, how do you do this for special needs kids? Even then it's still going to be very concrete, where like they're not actually like in front of the students that you're in front of to know exactly how you're going to be the one doing that. So for me it's all more of just like looking at ChatGPT more so as like a companion than a competitor.
Well, I mean, the special needs example, I think that's, in my mind, that's almost like the right thing to do, to like use a tool. Like it's like it would be like the morally correct thing to do, to like use something like ChatGPT, because like look, if you have someone with special needs that needs certain kind of conditions or like things that need to be done to enable their education, I think it would almost be immoral to like be an educator and be like, oh, I know what to do. I know everything I need to do. I read a Google article, or I remember secondhand from this one teacher telling me this, and I'm going to completely structure this kid's education around that idea. And you're almost like intentionally, maybe not intentionally, but like you're forcefully like giving them a bad education, because like you are so sure of yourself. Whereas you could very well use ChatGPT and be like actually be actively interested and not have to put that much time in it. Like, there was a time in history where like if you wanted to learn a new language, you went to class. And it wasn't because like it wasn't because like it was necessarily the superior way, but it was like a very well, I guess at the time it probably was the superior way. Like there wasn't Google, there wasn't these technologies. Like if you actually wanted to learn a language, that was like what everybody recommended, and there was truth to that. Like if you wanted to learn Russian, you would probably have to go to a college class overnight and like learn Russian, and that makes sense, right? Or you have to like get the book and do it on your own, but like not everybody can do that. So like that was like a good way to do that. But like in the modern landscape, if you want to learn Russian, you're like, you just go to ChatGPT, hey, how do I say this in Russian? And then it spits it out to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I really hate how people just like put this like, oh, it's so wrong that like this technology is like taking away jobs or like being the superior thing. And I'm like, this helps literally everyone. People who, like I used this example in the last episode that we did. Like if people lose their jobs to AI, they can literally use AI to get a new job. They can either find new jobs, they can have AI create a resume and cover letter, like that can actually enable them to like continue their job search, right? But like no, they'll just narrow. I think artists do this a lot of times too. Like they'll narrow in on like their job, and they're like, oh, this is taking away my job that I have currently, instead of being able to like, I don't know, have a little more open-minded of a stance on it.
Like I said, being more creative and thinking about like these jobs and all that, it's just like for me, like being someone who has like a bachelor's in educational studies, is getting this master's in creative writing, like in a traditional way, in a traditional mindset, I would be like, oh, well, I'm going to be a teacher and a creative professor out of that. And it's just like, those are options, but like, right now, I don't use my degree in a traditional way. I start my own program and organization, and that's in the which way I kind of like choose to educate. For me, like I said to say that like just having that creatively thinking kind of aspect is important with kind of AI. Just being like, okay, how can we use this to do what we've been doing, but doing it better, and even some of the stuff that we've been doing, being like, oh, we don't need that anymore, but. again, like again, it just runs deep when you're kind of a part of like a system that's never giving you that's never like valued that aesthetic of like critical thinking, because there's a difference between being smart and critically thinking. There's a lot of really smart people that don't know how to critically think.
Yes, 100%.
Some people you had in the last podcast. I'm just kidding. I know you don't want to say it. I said it for you. They can come from me. You didn't say it. It came out of my mouth. You didn't think it. I said it. I will stand on it. But it's just like,
I don't disagree with you.
You can sound smart and like know a lot of intelligent, like smart things, but you can still like sound like a dummy. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
well, we saw that during COVID.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there were all these very educated people who had, positions in government, or not even government, just like, doctors and people who like studied this stuff. Mm-hmm. And they were not able to critically think about it. They were not able to critically think like, oh, hey, this vaccine's only been out for like 3 months, maybe we don't know the long-term effects of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's a very like common sense, like, well, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And that's not even to say it's bad. It's just like, it's a valid question, right?
Yeah.
Or like, maybe lockdowns don't necessarily work, but like, there are these people who, you're right, like, are very intelligent, but they do not have the critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And then they rely all of their, they almost, in a way, I feel like COVID really kind of turned science. There was not even science in general, but it turned like the public sector of science into a religion.
Yeah,
like it was almost like Dr. Fauci was God. I mean, he literally said he was science at one point. And people, I think people literally latched onto that, and they were like, oh yeah, like, we're going to listen to him. We're going to listen to the CDC. We're going to listen to the government, the corporate press. We're going to listen to all these entities, and like, that's going to be the rule of law. And that's what we're going to, say.
Yeah.
And they ended up being wrong on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Arguably most of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, thankfully there was, podcasts and other forms of media that were able to combat it. And that was, I am so thankful for that, because I wonder if we would still be there if that wasn't the case.
That's true.
But there was like a very that was the separation in my mind. There were people who were really smart and couldn't critically think, and there were other people who were also really smart but could critically think.
Yeah, exactly.
And ask like really simple questions that like people on the other side were just not willing to answer. And it's like, for anybody who's able to critically think, they're like, what the hell's going on? Mm-hmm. But then, I also know a lot of people who frankly aren't able to critically think. Yeah. And then they just went along with it. And then if you kind of bring it up, they kind of just shut down. They're like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Cubs.
The old, like, we don't talk about politics and religion at the dinner table, people. It's like, at this point, like, the two are so interwoven into ours.
Right. Yeah.
But it's yeah, I'd even say it's kind of like, so we have this thing going on at home right now where we just had a moratorium approved by 90% of the aldermen of the council in Rock Island, Illinois.
Oh,
except for my mom. My mom's gangster and said no. But they pretty much had this moratorium where they pretty much essentially shut down all services for the unhoused, whether that be like detoxing, like living quarters, food pantries, everything, and pretty much said like, for the next month and a half or 2 months, I know it's going to be sometime in October, they're figuring out what to do and how to kind of regulate these like services that are in Rock Island and all that, because they don't want to shoulder all of like the unhoused community in Rock Island and all these things and that and the other. And like a lot of the city has been kind of like, that's like a lot of the citizens have been like, this is dumb. Why are y'all doing this and that and the other, and like at the forefront, we've had like certain aldermen who kind of like have spoken up about it, and like they've been very philosophical and smart about it. But again, like it's still like in a way of them saying like, oh, this is good for the unhoused community because we need to figure this out. So we got, even though it means taking them out of their places of living and their detoxification, putting them on the streets where they could possibly get like raped or anything like that. They're like, we got to do that. And for me, I'm like, that's stupid. Why don't you just leave the services here while y'all figure it out? And when y'all figure it out, you go to these services and be like, hey, these are the new regulations and all that of like how we want things to be treated. So like, can you guys do the work of like adjusting whatever it is you have kind of set up now because of the new regulations we have, as opposed to being like, okay, we guys, y'all are going to have to sleep outside for the next month and a half and find places to sleep and find places to piss and have possibly more cops involved, have people arrested.
True.
You know, it's just like that. It's like, but again, that's what happens when you have like smart thinkers who can't think critically. It's just like, because for me, I'm like, you know, I've never been in that space of like being in that political space, but I don't think you have to be able to see like, why can't y'all just do both? Like,
well, I mean, frankly, I don't think most people in government actually are that smart. I mean, that's just my honest opinion. I really don't think that. You know, like I will say, and you probably disagree with this, but like I can't actually see like an argument for like cutting those programs, just because like, yes, that will be a result, but like also things are gonna then be cheaper for everyone. Like we're not going to be putting as many taxpayer dollars towards that, so then like people are in theory going to save more money. I mean, the problem is also you still have the state, so it's like, okay, is the state really going to give that money back, or are they just going to put more money into their own pocket? Like that's a very messy thing that I don't also agree with. It's hard because you have this like government entity that like basically monopolizes that whole thing. Yeah. Because if private entities want to do that, it either has to be through the church, or they have to, if they set it up privately, they have to have all these regulations, and like they have to have people inspect it, and there's like all these like loopholes that make it much harder for them to do that than the government. Like the government is just there. It's like, okay, we're gonna use taxpayer dollars to create a homeless shelter, and that's it. And then if business owners are like, hey, we don't like the homeless in the streets, we want to make like a shelter or like a soup kitchen, like they have to go through all these same loopholes, which is going to be expensive, and you know they're not really going to be, I mean, it's just not going to be cost effective. So yeah, I mean, I personally kind of see the other side of the argument, but I do think that is a problem though, is like when you have like this government entity that is supposedly going to care for everybody, and then they just decide not to, people don't really have options because that's like the system, that's like the standard that's been set. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So you're saying you're saying more so like the moratorium makes sense in that, or?
Well, I can see the flip side of like, or not the flip side, but I can see the argument for like, you know, cutting these programs, because in essence it does, like, because, you know, these programs, it creates tax dollars, and if there's no tax dollars involved, they just inflate the dollar, and then like everything's just more expensive for everyone, including those people who are at the bottom who rely on these, you know, because they need food or whatever, and it's going to be more expensive for them to do that also. So, and I don't know. I just don't think that like it's a sticky situation to like really think about and grapple with, right? Yeah. Because you can see the side of the aisle where it's like, okay, you cut out the funding and like it makes things cheap, you know, ideally makes things cheaper, and then these people who are suffering can still have that. But then the opposite end of the aisle is like, if we put more money into that, then like it's more expensive for everyone, and then including those people. Yeah. And then you're relying on that system to deliver on everything, which it never does. Yeah. So then you have the problem where it's like, okay, we're going to control this sector. We're going to control we're going to control helping the homeless or the impoverished or whatever, right? But then if they don't deliver on that, but then also have all these restrictions set up where like a private entity can't come in and like solve the problem, then you have a real problem in your hands. And that's when you have like mass homelessness on the street, and it's like, well, who's going to take care of this? It's like the people you are relying on to take care of this, who not only you're relying on, but are not allowing anyone else to help. Like then you just create like a cesspool of problems. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. And that's my whole thing is like, it's kind of like two things with that for me. Cause I definitely understand the other side, especially cause Rock Island right now, like they're broke. Everything, they're very broke. Yeah. Like I don't think anybody will say it, but Rock Island is broke, and they need money, and they're tapping into this capitalistic part, which I'm like, you know, I tell people all the time, like, I don't think capitalism is wrong. It's how you like kind of go about it and all that. And for me, when I kind of look at it about from that standpoint, it's like, I get that. And I guess the question for me is like, is it worth the risk of like the possibility of like what will happen to like human life during that like time of making the decision? Because again, it's just like one of those things, like people, like one of the people who came to kind of speak at the city council meeting last week before they made this decision was someone who was like a homeless person in the Quad Cities who like, you know, got all the services they need. They now have like a job, they have a family and all this. And they came in to share the story of like, I had a friend who got raped literally in their unhoused, you know.
Oh yeah, that's another
like,
thing that happens.
That's a reality. So it's like, for me, I'm like, I don't get so like kind of caught up emotionally in it. Where like, if I ask, like, if that's something that you're okay with while making a decision, you got to sit with that though. Be honest with it. That you said like, okay, I made this decision, even though I knew that this could happen or this could kind of like make it where like police get involved with like arresting more homeless people and all that, or makes it where like more buildings are getting broken into and all that because they don't have anywhere to stay.
Yeah,
and it's just like
it promotes crime because like they know like if in jail I can at least get a bed or like a cot and like even like a stone, like a stone with a pillow and like 3 meals a day.
That's from the whole thing. Looking at it, it's like, wouldn't you rather have the unhoused community have a place to go as opposed to like being in random places while you're making the decision and like, you know, leaning so hard into like the desperate survivalism of like, oh, I'm just going to break into this fucking building because it's cool as fuck and I'm just going to be in here. It's just like, if you're okay with that being a thing, then, you know, I have nothing to say to that, but be honest to yourself. You know, that's what it is at the end of the day, you know, with that. And then on top of that, you know, like with kind of like the entities that we've had in the Quad Cities who serve the unhoused community and like even the newer ones, and mind you, there's some new ones that I'm skeptical of because I see kind of the capitalizing of something more so than like being there. Sure. But I digress, you know, on that. But it's like we have, you know, like we have nonprofit organizations that like have literally like, I shouldn't say nurse because I feel like that's a better term than that, but like for lack of a better term, like who have nursed back the unhoused community to like detoxify them, provide them this stuff so that their mental's right enough to like do what they need to do with get a job and all this and like I've seen people who have worked in the unhoused community make it where like these unhoused community individuals now have homes to live in and are like mentally there because of what they have. And now, does that mean that everybody's going to be there? It's kind of like what I was saying earlier about the lazy kid. Like, no, there's some people who are going to use the system and not and just be lazy. And that's with anywhere. You're gonna have that anywhere.
No, that's inevitable. Well, and like when you're speaking to earlier when you were saying like kind of bringing the capitalism into it, I mean that is, I mean I view that more as crony capitalism, not free market.
What is it?
Crony capitalism.
Crony capitalism.
So like if you were like a corporation and like I'm reading this book right now. Have you heard the East India Trading Company?
No.
So they were I'm reading this book right now called The Anarchy, which was recommended to me by one of our podcast guests. And I don't really agree with his assertion about it. But basically, the East India Trading Company was this company set up by a bunch of British political elites who had a bunch of money. And then they went to India to like basically like trade with them and bring a lot of goods to England and like the UK and the French and all that. And what ended up happening is the Mughal Empire, which was like the government in India, collapsed. And then the Eastern India Trading Company like basically took it over. But like it was not like the company came in and was like, hey, I have salt. Do you want to buy salt? It was like they went to the elites and were like, you better buy my fucking salt or I'm going to put a bullet in your head.
Yeah.
And then they were taxing people and then like all that. So like that is crony capitalism. So like free market capitalism was like, hey, I have this water bottle. Do you want to buy this water bottle? And you agree, you say yes. You give me $10, I give you the water bottle. That's free market capitalism. That's a mutual exchange. Crony capitalism would be, hey, I'm holding a gun to your head. You better buy this fucking water bottle. I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And so when you have something like with the homeless epidemic, where you have like more of that capitalistic sense, where it's like a corporation coming in and being like, oh, we're going to help the homeless. Like it's not true capitalism. Like it's backed by the state. Like there's like this middleman of the state where it's like they're gonna fund this thing, but like because the state kind of provides the middlemaning, like they can't really fail.
Yeah,
there's not real choice in that. Yeah. So like then they just end up profiting. Without actually any supplier demand. You know what I mean?
Yep, I get that. Okay, damn, I've been doing Young Lions wrong the whole time. I need to get into this crony capitalism. I have this program for the kids.
A lot of people
give me all this money. Well, no, I've seen it happen like over and over though. Yeah,
a lot of people, I think, especially in our generation, misunderstand that.
Yeah.
I think people view the umbrella of capitalism as more of that crony system. Because the thing is, free market capitalism doesn't really exist in America. It does to some extent, but like even where it does, there's still regulations, there's still government oversight. Like if you go to your grocery store, that's closer to free market capitalism, but then you also have like the grocery stores are like beholden to like certain regulations or whatever. So yeah, there isn't really true free market capitalism in America. So I think a lot of people, when they view capitalism, they view it as what's really crony capitalism, and it's really difficult to like explain that to people and be like, hey, like this. The reason it's not working is because it's not true capitalism.
No, that's true. I'm glad you broke that down because I never even was like aware of that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Anyways, we have Aubrey here to talk about his, semi-new book at this point. A couple months ago.
It's
April.
In April. Yeah.
I Took the Wrong Turn, which I will say it's been a couple months since I read it, but that is your new collection of poetry. And I guess we're already 45 minutes into this, but fuck it. Let's talk about what went into this. What was your inspiration for that? And just talk about the book a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So it was my fourth poetry book and all that. And this one, it was kind of sparked more so about kind of like just kind of losing a sibling to like suicide. Now about almost 4 years ago, and kind of just going through all these like different ways of grief and all that. Like some that looked great, others that looked completely like terrible and completely against like, how I've learned to move in the world and all that. And I remember like at the time I was kind of looking for like literature and even like podcasts or something that talked about like the ugly side of grief. Cause like I think so much when we kind of think about grief and all that, like we kind of think about the standpoint of like people like sharing their stories of people who they lost, but talk about like more so the hopeful parts of it. Like, you know, the like, oh, well, I learned this from it and I've learned that. And I've grown to be a better person out of it, and I think that's parts, that's always the destination. I think that we all kind of have in that grief journey, but I couldn't find anything that talked about like the ugly sides of it of like, okay, like, were there times that you like self-sabotage through like over drinking or through porn consumption or through like things being disloyal to people around you, lying and just like crashing out because of like being in this place of like space of grief, which is like pretty much you losing a big part of yourself. I couldn't find anything, so for me I'm like, I think just being a creative and that I am, and just kind of like having the inspirations creatively that I do, because honestly I think I'd also say that from a creative standpoint, Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale was a big influence too, of just how he talked about his shit.
Yeah,
fully, his childhood traumas, how that manifested in him as an adult and all this to say other, some people kind of look at it and like will weaponize like, and the price of like vulnerability like that is that people will like weaponize it against you, like, oh, this person was a cheater, or this person was like a wife beater or something, and it's just like, which in the context of the Kendrick thing, we don't know if that's true. We just have the Drakes to support that, but nonetheless, I think just kind of seeing him still kind of like stand on his own and like talking about himself being human, I'm like, that's inspiring. And I think as creatives, we got to be able to do that to kind of show, sometimes I think people can kind of hold us on like this pedestal of creatives, but being like, no, like I'm learning just as y'all are. Like I got my traumas, I got my shit too, and this is just my unique story of like how I've kind of navigated. So yeah, I took the wrong path. It was literally kind of like manifested out of that, of just like realizing that like, in my grief, I took wrong paths, paths where I was less of a good friend to friends, where I was like more isolated, where I drank more, where I lied to friends, where I was disloyal and all that in relationships and all that, and just being able to like say that and sit with it and recognize it, and kind of know where it's all coming from when it comes to grief, so I felt like it was a project for me to just be able to kind of get out what was kind of inward, and kind of like something I can come back to and kind of like learn from, but also kind of show, others who kind of like have been through that space of grief and maybe like sat with that shame of like being less of who they are, or people who don't know what the hell to do when they have a grieving like friend or family member, so I kind of wrote it from those kind of inspirations, really.
Well, that's what I loved about, your writing in general, but especially this book is very raw. very unapologetic. And I think that's what I like about you in general.
Yeah.
Is like, I think it is very easy for people to like, you know, if they're talking about grief or whatever, just look at like the positives of it, or just be like, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel, or like, you know, you just got to do this or this or this. But it's true. Not a lot of people, like, I feel like actually are willing to talk about that, because it is an uncomfortable thing. Like, it's an uncomfortable idea, I feel like, for people to talk about the thing that could lead you further down that path. Like the title of the book. Lead you further down that path than the other way around. Like, because if there's someone who's like trying to speak from like a positive stance, it almost like goes against what they're like preaching or what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But like, I do think, you know, and I try to do it on my podcast or like talking to people, but like, yeah, I mean, I think you have to be willing to, like, if you really, not even like through grief, but if you really just want to develop as a person, I think you really have to be able to grapple with that negative side of you.
Yeah.
That's something that I've had to do, like, you know, with my recovering porn addiction. Like, that's something I've had to do, like, just really sitting with yourself and realizing, okay, this is a dark side of myself. But I'm gonna actually try to sit and grapple with it. And, you know, going back to like Kendrick Lamar, I think that's something that he really did in that album. And, you know, I think it's sad that people view that as like, or like people try to weaponize that and use that as like a diss to him. It's like, okay, so what? So he was being honest and apologetic. Like, let's say he even did beat his wife, you know? Like, I don't think that he, at least through his music, I don't think he would object to that. Like, if he was that type of person, he wouldn't have put out that album.
Yeah.
But like, then the other side, like, you know, of that whole thing, like Drake, like, he would never admit to that kind of stuff. Like, he would never admit to like the pedo allegations or like inclinations in that way. Like, he would just put on a face, right? And like, I think it's sad that people kind of, like you said, weaponize that. Like, they'll be like, oh, this is all the shitty things that he did. It's like, yeah, he's like admitting that he did it. He's coming clean. Why is this a bad thing?
Yeah.
That's like if I had something where, I don't know, like if I was cheating on my spouse, right? Or not my spouse, my fiance. If I was cheating on her and then I told her about it, like, yes, I cheated on her. That's still a lot better than continuing to cheat and never telling her and she finds out, right? Like, both those things can be bad, but like, one's at least admirable. I mean, I think she's even said to me, like if you just tell me, like, I can at least somewhat respect the fact that you told me about it, that you were fucking honest and man enough to like actually say like, hey, yeah, I fucked up. I want to do better.
Yep.
That's a way better message than like, yeah, it's sad that people call that weaponization. That's stupid.
Yeah, and I think when you kind of have the world that we do of like social media and all this, it's like, you know, and just kind of like the fact that like, I think the one thing that we all share as like humans in this experience is that we're all traumatized. We all have trauma. I don't think anybody comes to this world and will leave without any trauma. And with that, like,
there's degrees to it, but like, I feel like everyone has some amount of trauma, at least something traumatic. Yeah,
you know, and when that's like an unprocessed one, like, people will hear narratives of like, you know, Kendrick talking about like the disloyalty to his woman, and they'll be triggered by like situations that they had that happened in the past, and like literally look at Kendrick through the lens of the person who abused them in that, as opposed to like just seeing this as a narrative somebody shared, because it's just like, yo, homie, you ain't healed yet, and I know that because you just literally took this moment and said like, oh, this person's this and this person's this, in December they did this. It's like, do you know this person? Did you see Kendrick in December? Like, no, it's literally your own thing, you know. And I think that's all the more reason that like it's important for creatives to do that, you know. Not for, and again, because again, I think like the whole full circle thing about it all is like we're always gonna have traumatized people who will never deal with their traumas in a healthy form on Earth. We can't do anything about that, you know. There's always gonna be people who are gonna like crucify you for showing your flaws and all this, and like they're gonna exist till the world's not the world anymore. But the people who are supposed to like hear those messages or see that like and be like, okay, dang, I don't have to hold myself to the shame anymore, and I can do better. Kind of like you said, like I think you can't stop at just, oh, I'm a fucked up person, because it's like, okay, that's a good start and recognizing what you are, but like, what are you gonna do so you're not that anymore? That's the important part, you know.
Yeah. You know, and like, how are we gonna heal as like as people if we can't understand that. Like if we like refuse to try to understand the other side of the coin. Like let's say you're raped, right? Like let's say somebody, man or woman, like or like whoever is who, right? Like someone takes advantage of someone else sexually. Like if you don't even try to understand what happened with that person, like you're never gonna heal. But like if you try to sit back and think, okay, like maybe they were abused. Maybe something happened in their life where now they have this really, and that's not excusing anyone. That's not saying that what they did was okay. It's quite the opposite. But like, if you're not going to try to sit down and be human, like you're never really going to work past that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it even means to say like, because I think sometimes this is one thing that I've kind of learned in kind of my journey, like post this book and all that, is just like, when you do fucked up things to people, you got to reconcile. We can't walk around and like be it is what it is people and be like, okay, well, I don't have to like apologize for anything like that. Because again, like if we're gonna heal, we got to realize like, oh, when I fuck up, I got to be able to say, hey, I fucked up and I'm genuinely sorry about this. So you got to have that. But there's also the side of it that I've learned that like even with kind of like this season of reconciling that I've been in, I shouldn't have the certainty that means that a bridge is going to be built between me and the person that I wronged and all that. Because I think sometimes too, like sometimes like I think at the end of the day, reconciliation and accountability is for us.
Yes,
on a personal level, it's just for us. Like it's not for like, let's say I did this thing to this person, I was like, I'm sorry for this, and they accepted, but like, you know what, I can't be around you anymore. That's okay, like that's you have your right to that, because like who am I to say that like, oh, I showed you healing and I showed you that I'm changed, but you don't want to be around me no more.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
Like, but,
you can't force that.
But with that, it also it's so nuanced in the sense of like, even with that, because I think the battle with me to overcome was to understand that like, just because I have people in life who now view me in that way, it doesn't reflect who I am in the present moment. It's just like they have this version of me that was a true I shouldn't say true version of me, but a version of me that was truly there.
Yeah, perceived version.
Truly did what they did, indubitably and all that. But also, I don't have to stay as that version that they have for me, But just acknowledge like, I did do that shit, and that was fucked up, and I'm gonna have to sit with that for the rest of my life. But I don't have to sit with that with shame, but more so like, hey, I did this, and this is how I navigated it,
Yeah, that's actually really insightful. Because I think that's something I really struggle with. Actually, is I think with a lot of people, I do kind of think about more like who they perceive me as versus how it's really hard for me to separate that. Like if somebody thinks that I'm a bad person for my beliefs, for my actions, or whatever, like I do kind of tend to hold on to that and be like, oh, this is who I am. And like I do struggle with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. But I think that's awesome that you've come to that conclusion, that you have really understood that. I think that's great.
Yeah, well, I read this book. There's this book I was reading a while ago that I gave to one of my buddies who went through the same thing as me, and it's by this woman named Joanne Borisenko, and she wrote this book called Shame is the Teacher Loves the Lesson. And it's pretty much just talking about like looking at your shame and like an honest eye and looking at your dark shit, the moments that are outside of like what you are consistently about, the moments you yell and cuss at somebody in their face over some trauma that you went through, or the moments that you lied and all this, and realizing that like that was a true moment, but realizing where it came from and healing that part where it came from to a point where like you now look at those things as like, oh, well, that's something I did do, and I don't have to live by that. And I think that's why it's so much more easier for me. Even with this book, I feel like it was hard for me to put some of the stuff in there that I did. And even after, I was like, dang, like, how are people going to like view me in this light, But for me, I was just like, that's just a part of myself that kind of holds that shame. But then I kind of listen more to myself and just being like, I listen to more of myself and just be like, fuck it. Like,
you do have to be willing to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's just me. It's just part of me to put like, it's just my job to put out the narrative. But like ever since putting out this, I found that it's made me more okay with kind of like writing about like those parts of myself, whether it be in like art, music, poetry, and all that, and just being okay with like, I don't care what people think about me after, because I know who I am in the present moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something I've also found with all this is like I think I've found that I have like less and less patience for people. Like especially over the last 5 years, like I've had people who have come to me and, confided in me that like they struggle with porn addiction or alcoholism or whatever. And, or like maybe they didn't even confide in me, but like I just try to support them and help them. But I think I've gone through so many experiences in my life where like you just realize like you can't help that person.
Yeah.
All you can do is be supportive. Ultimately, they have to be able to help themselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost like getting to a point where like I'm just turning into an asshole because like that, like I just have so little patience for it.
Yeah.
Like if someone's like doing some bullshit, like I think about, okay, like I know the next 5 steps to what's going to happen. Like I'm going to keep like trying to stay connected with them. I'm going to try to keep bargaining with them and try to like go out my way to help them. And then in the end, they're just going to say, fuck you and do their own thing anyways.
Yeah.
So like I mean, even like recently there have been friendships where it's just kind of faded because, I'm just like, yeah, I can't be this person for you. I can't be like your rock. Right. Like you got, like you can, I mean, you can, like people can support you. You can find support.
Yeah.
But like to make the changes is on you.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's funny that you said, because I was just talking to one of my friends this morning that like that's where I feel like I've kind of been like when it comes to like being someone now who kind of like has people who I work with who work with my organization, all that, and kind of being more like in a said like leadership position and all that, and having like friends who have these anxieties or certain things about life. A lot of my response has been like, you got to get over that. And this comes from somebody, who kind of like works in kind of the social emotional space and all that. So I understand emotions. I sympathize, I empathize. But at the end of the day, like you got to do your work. You can't like expect someone to coddle your anxieties and say like, oh, well, my anxieties are just me and this is the way I'm going to be forever. It's like, well, you're not going to have friends. Because somebody wants to deal with this shit all the time. Like, come on, man. Like,
oh, that's hilarious.
And it's different from like
you're not gonna have friends.
I've told friends this because it's just like, man, like at the end of the day, like.
So that's why I don't have friends. That's why Grok is my only friend. No, I'm kidding. You're my friend.
Oh shit! But it's a thing, man. Like at the end of the day, like the one like while we're here on Earth and all that, we all got to do our own work on our stuff, and we can't just like cop out and say like, oh, well, this is just me. This is the version I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Like that's exhausting, and like yes, you're going to exhaust everybody around you and yourself without even knowing it because you just accept this thing because you don't want to do work. It's just like that's lazy, Like and I guess like sometimes maybe I unfairly kind of juxtapose it, but it's just like when I look at all the traumas that I've had to go through in the last 5 years and like the ugliness of it and all, and still had to be like, okay, I got to do it myself. You can lean on people, like you said. You can lean. It's not to say that like you won't have friends who say like, hey, you can lean on me, but there's a difference between leaning on and jumping on the fucking back of like someone. It's just like
almost like taking advantage of them in a way.
Yeah,
like letting them feed your shit instead of working through it and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my thing. It's just like I think, and I like the fact that you're going through the same thing. I think it's just a natural process of like when you healthily kind of go through these stages and all that, and you see it in other people, you just know like, I know to be here, but if you're not here for that work at the end of the day, I'm not here to like carry you on my back. No, like I got too much stuff I got to do. We all got our own inner work we got to do, and it's just like to have somebody. To think that somebody should stay there and like be your cripple and crutch is like that's asinine. That's freaking crazy. Like you got to do the work, And I think people need those people. People need us to be like, you're being annoying.
Yes, yes. People do need that.
Because like I don't abide by the whole like everybody's a snowflake-ism and all that. Because we're all humans. We're all gonna have a softness to us in some type of way, shape, or form. But there's a difference between like, hey, like you got to learn how to deal with the shit. You have to, because like I'm not probably like I could be hit by a car tomorrow, and where's your crutch after that? Your parents could be be gone tomorrow. It's like where your crutches at? Like, are you just gonna freak out and be anxious in your room? Like, oh my god, I don't know what to do, or just like
you're writhing around the floor. I can't walk.
Yeah, I can't walk. Knowing damn well your fucking legs work. Like, get up and walk. Well, it's just like I know it's almost like borderline David Goggins too. Yeah. I'm totally not that either. I am not that. That man is a whole other different.
You're a bitch.
Yeah, no.
Stop being a bitch.
Yeah, no. We all got a little bitch in us, just a little bit, you know. But
Yeah.
we got to sit with that, though. We got to sit with that.
Well, shit. I think even he. I remember there was a point where like he was like fighting with someone online, and it's like, okay, you're just not like you're going against your own shit. I don't remember what it was, but I do remember seeing something like that where he was mad. It's like, okay, dude.
Too much of that pre-workout powder.
You know, speaking of like the your annoying thing, you know, I always think back to this one time when I was in high school. I was taking this like education, like it was basically, I think it was called Foundations of Education. It was basically like a class that taught you how to teach. It was an awful experience for me overall.
Yeah, but
one of the things that really stuck with me is we watched this documentary of this this kid who was like quote unquote being bullied, and like basically what it was like they had like a documentary crew and everything. Basically, this kid was like he was kind of an asshole, but like he was just like kind of sitting there minding his own business, right? Yeah. And like this kid's like annoying him, and then the kid like eventually fucking punches him or something. And then they framed it as like, oh, this is the bully and this is the victim. Yeah. And I was kind of, even back then, I'm kind of like, well, he was kind of being annoying as shit. Like, yeah. Like he was probably like autistic or like on the spectrum or something. But I feel like even I would be like, dude, get the fuck out of here.
It's a truth, man. I tell people when I was an at-risk teacher and like whenever fights would break out in front of like the kids and all that, like I admitted, so there were some fights where I was like, you know, like this kid's about to push this kid for bullying him, and I'm gonna let I'm saying this, but I'm gonna let the push happen and then de-escalate it because I know the push ain't gonna break nothing or nothing.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm a step in and be like, okay, what happened? Oh, he pushed me. Why'd he push you? Because he's an idiot. It's like, what did he do? He pushed because I pushed him. So you put your hands on him first, and he pushed you back. I'm not saying that he's right. But I'm saying there's a response to stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to sit with your stuff and like take your proverbial or literal pushes. And people are going to be like, hey, you know, as an adult, that looks like, hey, like your proverbial pushing like is going to make me go this way and leave, you know, and I wish you well. But like, you know, that's a normal response for humans. You know, I don't think like healing means that everybody's going to be like, turn the other cheek in the way that we think it for everybody. It's just like, no, like sometimes healing it's to people it looks like, hey, like I just know what shit I'm gonna not take, you know, and it's your shit.
Yeah.
You know? And exactly. I know because if I do stay around for it, I'm gonna be fucking crazy and I'm gonna be snapping out at the Taco Bell drive-thru at fucking 11:45 p.m. at the low minimum wage worker for no reason, but just because you pissed me off, and now I'm taking all this energy and putting somewhere else. Let's just stay apart until you working your shit.
That's very cognizant of you, Aubrey.
Hey, that's why I'm a storyteller, man.
Yeah, I love it. Speaking of storytelling, I wanted to ask you because I've actually taken it upon myself recently. I've decided I'm going to do more writing. I was actually doing some writing before you got here.
Yeah.
And I want to ask as like from writer to writer. I mean, I've written in the past, but like it's been like in waves. Like I'll write a lot for a month and then like I'll take a year off type of thing. Yeah. But like what is? I'm curious. Like what? I mean, I know you do mostly poems. Do you ever do like long form essay story type stuff, or is it usually just poems?
So this grad program that I'm in at Maharishi International University, not a cult. And if it is, I'll have been invited yet. So I like to put that out there. But I've been finding myself doing more essays from that program, you know.
Okay.
Because I kind of, you know, I came into this program as just being somebody who writes poetry and has written music and all that. You know, I have music that I'm writing for the first time in a couple of years and all that. So I'm still very involved in kind of these, like said, short forms of writing. But I have been finding myself doing more like essays, you know, lyric essays and like story writing and all that, kind of like explore my creativity with that, which has been really cool. It's been different, but you know, it's really cool to do. I think as a creative, we have that like opportunity to kind of expand ourselves in that way.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So, but like, what I guess like, what's your process when you're like, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna write a poem, or like I'm gonna sit down, like put a collection of poems together? Like, what is that process like for you?
Yeah. Now, honestly, I've gotten to a place of just like, my writing's kind of looked very different in the last year and a half. I think it's just because of the influences I'm around and all that, and just kind of space of life and all that I'm in. But sure, I've been learning just to kind of just like be less focused on like perfection, you know, because even though like I like to tell myself that I don't lean on perfectionism a lot, I think as a creative we all do in some kind of way. So like for me, that perfectionism looks taking time with work and all that. But I've been learning to just write whatever's in my brain.
Okay.
And just write that. Don't even overthink it. Like, because, you know, I think from a creative standpoint, like creatives like us, because we create for the sake of like it being out in the public and all that, we consciously and unconsciously sometimes have like a sense of perfectionism and all that, or like really thinking about what we want to write and all that. Which I think there's a good thing about that. I think where that fits. But I think sometimes like it does make us makes us less likely to just like create and just write what's there without any thought of like what we're writing, like what it's going to sound like, you know, and just letting that kind of unveil itself. So as of recently, when it comes to like my essays and like my poems that I've written, I've just been kind of writing, even if it's not, you know, the writing that I'm used to, that's kind of like riddled with like wordplay, rhyme, and all these poetic devices, but just being like, okay, I'm just going to write what's up here and then work through it later. Because, you know, I think, I don't know if you can relate, but I think like one thing that I've noticed as a creative that creatives don't really practice is like the understanding that like your first draft is always your shitty draft.
Yes.
You know, and you have to go through many, like, and I think that applies to like not just like essays or poems, but even like songs, you know, of just like, you know, like if you're pleased with what you do the first time, cool, but I think there's also a process and like kind of an important part of the creative process of like going over this piece, you know, revising it 10 times, 20 times, 30, whatever you need to be able to feel like it's good, you know? So like for me, I've been kind of like handling my writing in the sense of like the first time I'm not thinking about shit. I'm not thinking about how it should sound or whatever. I'm just thinking about getting my ideas out. Cause I think, Jordan Peele said this quote that kind of stuck with me where like when in his creative process, he looks at it as kind of like putting sand in the sandbox. You're not worrying about the grains of sand. You're just putting sand in the sandbox and pouring it in there. And then after, make your castles and all that when you have it all there. Some sand you might say, I don't need the sand in here. It's too much fucking sand on this thing. I can't really sit in it, you know. But the process is more so like pouring out everything that you got right there. So for me, my creative process as of lately has just been like, okay, let me just write all the shit, even if it sounds terrible and all that, it should. And then later, let me just kind of like, okay, I can take that out. I can expand on this. I don't need this whole 16 bars. Let's throw that out and kind of like kill the darlings, as they call it, you know?
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking that was something I learned about in video production that really stuck to me was the whole idea of like killing your darlings. Mm-hmm. Like if you want, I mean, especially in the media, like the visual media circuit where like everybody's competing for time and attention. And like, let's say like if you want to make a movie or a TV show, like there's certain, like especially with a TV show, there are like certain time constraints. Mm-hmm. Like, so you have to, like you as an artist, like you have to be able to kill your darlings. Yeah. You have, like, even if you have some part of your story or your script or whatever that like you really hold on to or really want, like there's so many times where you just got to learn, okay, I need to cut this and I need to figure out how I'm going to make what I have work without it. Mm-hmm. And I think that takes skill. That takes a lot of skill. And I think that's something that like a lot of people who are novices or like who aren't like necessarily that understanding of that process like really struggle with. Like you do see like these pieces where it's just like it's way too long. Like you're like, oh my God, this thing's 2 hours and it could have been 20 minutes. Yeah. Like easily. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like like with film, I almost appreciate like the 70, 80, 90 minute film more than the 2.5 hour epic sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes you can make a 2.5 hour epic and it can still have that formula where like you are cutting out your darlings, but it's like it's so engaging the whole time that you don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. But then there are times where it's like, okay, this thing could have been 70, 80 minutes and you dragged it out to 2.5 hours because
the Transformer movies.
Yeah, shit like that. Or like the Marvel movies that are like 3 hours. Like, there's no way this could have been shorter. I'm sitting there like falling asleep and I'm like, oh my God, this is so fucking boring.
Yeah, it's like, so how much times is Voltron going to come back in this time span? No, seriously though,
Yeah.
but like that's the thing, I never even thought about it from like the visual art standpoint because like I can imagine that even being like, damn, I got to part with this, this scene because it resonated with this, But yeah, it's the same thing, I think I've learned that like all in all, like when it comes to like creativity and poetry, I've been telling my students, and just when I say poetry, I mean music and just all art forms that kind of like entail kind of literary use and all that.
Have that same kind of like beat pattern, sort of.
Yeah. Because like I'd say even rap more so because rap you have a certain meter that you stick to. Poetry, it's whatever you create. Some people make a 9-minute song. I'd be like, that's too long, bro. Like 9-minute long. I wouldn't even write a 9-minute long poem. That'd be boring after a while.
Yeah.
But I've been telling I tell my students that like the art of like poetry is kind of learning how to say what you want to say with the least amount of words.
Yes.
And like being okay with like, leaving parts like with a sense of uncertainty. Like if you're talking about this, if you're writing a song or a poem about this conversation you had with this person, like you're not going to talk about all the people that were surrounding you or what you were drinking or what they looked like or what all that stuff was like. Maybe it's relevant to you for the sake of memory, but like your audience doesn't care about all that. Like, how do you get to the point of what you want to talk about and be okay, like with the other stuff just being a part of the narrative that is kind of like the unseen bloopers that nobody will ever see, And I think as creatives, we tell ourselves that everything we write is good and we want to keep everything. It's just like, I mean, you could, but if at some point in your creative process, if your creative intent is to like tell a story, we've all sat with that friend who told a story for about 10 minutes. That could have been 5 minutes. You're just sitting there like, hey, bro, it's cool. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Usually a woman. No, okay. Let me tell you about my dream I had last night. Oh my God. Kill me now.
I'm going to tell you exactly what happened at work and the people's names and what they got going on in their lives and why it pissed me off because it's just like, dang, that's crazy. Bad storytellers.
Yeah. She's not here, so I can shut her a little bit. My fiance has very vividly detailed dreams.
Yeah.
Like she will like tell me like every single thing about it. Like she'd be like, yeah, we were doing this and then this happened and he said this and I'm like, and then like she's like, what was your dream about? I'm like, my mom got mad at me and that was it. Like I do it in like 2 sentences. I'm like, that was my dream. Like
and it's always when you first wake up in the morning, it's just like
you like can't like
it is 6:46 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here for 8 minutes hearing this for the first thing.
and then you fall back asleep and she's like, were you even listening? Like, no, I was not. I was wandering. My mind was wandering halfway through that. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
It's like, girl, I got ADHD.
Yeah, right.
No.
You're expecting too much out of me. You're expecting way too much out of me.
Bro, hey, but that is like when you can be honest like that is it's love in its pure form.
Love. Yes.
Hey, because
that's
like,
love.
I'm not following the story, but hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. That
you can say that to your partner and they're still with you. That's definitely true love.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to ask you about before we maybe wrap this up. I saw that you were recently part of a play.
Yes.
What's it called again?
It's called The Half.
The Half. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? I mean, first of all, I think that's a really impressive thing. I feel like for someone who, is like a rapper and a poet to like take on this completely new art form. Mm-hmm. Which I mean, I'm sure that you had lines to memorize. You had like that's a whole process in itself.
Yeah.
I was involved in plays a little bit in high school, but like it was mostly the background work or like I was an extra or something, or like had like a really small role.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, but it seems like for you're like you have a pretty major part in this.
Yeah. So the play was a 2-man play.
Okay, that's what I
So
thought.
it was a 2-man play. It was written by my buddy Curtis, who's been he went to school for playwright and acting, and like he's been working as like a play production company for about 8-9 years now. So, and we've known each other since high school. Like we go back all the way to high school. So like,
hell yeah.
In between his journey of like creating this like production company and doing these plays, he's always kept me in mind because of like what I do from a poetry standpoint. Because like poetry and like aspects, I should say, more so aspects of poetry are so synonymous to theater, depending on the creative, and for me, like, I'm someone who kind of considers, like, battle rap and poetry as, like, they have theater elements, so I've always been infatuated with theater from that, because I've pulled a lot from it creatively. So it almost was like being able to kind of like be brought into this play that he wrote over like a 6-7 year period, and kind of like get into this role of like acting. It almost was like I kind of knew what aspects of it like felt like the memorization process, because like I memorized poems so much, where like I was like, okay, this play, it was actually easier because it being like a 2-man play, and like it was 64 pages. Like that 64 pages is I would say maybe with all the lines I had, is maybe the equivalent of like 3 poems, just broken up throughout this thing, So like that memorization process was a little bit more easier because I'm already kind of having that there. I think like the process that was like that challenged me the most creatively is like really kind of getting into the skin of a character that I had some similarities with, but was a completely different person. Because like my character in the play was Professor. He's like a 19-year-old kid who grew up in Rock Island, who was going off to college and all this, So there's like little things I had in similarity to this character, but for the most part, I kind of had to like learn how to put myself into like the body of this character that realistically doesn't exist, but exists through however I choose to kind of like channel him to like the littlest things. Like I even during the rehearsals, like I usually keep my phone in my left pocket, and I was like, Professor, would he keep his phone in his left pocket? It's like, let's put it in my right pocket. It's just little things like that. Little things like that. Just be like, okay, like I'm not Aubrey right now, and I gotta like be into the full skin of this character, which was like that part was cool. I really liked that part, and kind of how it challenged me to kind of really get into the skin of a character that is one that I didn't create. But it's a great play. We're actually doing more showings of it. We have our next set of plays next week, Friday and Saturday actually. But it's a play that we're going to be doing out throughout the whole next year and all that. Cause
nice, hell yeah.
It's a well written play. It has a lot of like artistically, it's dope. The message of it's cool, and like just the narrative in which it's kind of like written. Like Curtis is like a super prolific creative, So
hell yeah.
It's been a dope process.
I'll have to come over there and see it sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I have always struggled with like I was kind of able to do it when I did the rapping, but like I've always struggled with that memorization. I can't even imagine what that's like to like. I mean, you said it's like not, what was it, the equivalent's like 3 poems.
Yeah.
But like even that, like I can't imagine like actually sitting there. Like you would have to be like so invested at that point to like be able to be like, okay, this is like at this part, this is what I'm gonna say. At this part, this is what I'm gonna say. How is that translated? Like performing, like have there been like, because you've performed in front of audiences, right? At this point,
yeah.
Like how is that translated? Like have there been points where like it's kind of been a flub and you've kind of had to like get back on your feet and make it work? Like I don't know, like what's that been like?
I think for me, because kind of just getting the coaching from Curtis of like what it's going to be like and all that, and just having the coaching from him all together, I think like the big thing that like, because I like, again, like I know how to kind of keep pacing, have stage presence, and like the freedom with it is that like with poetry, I feel like there's a certain cadence or rhythm I keep, but with this play, like I didn't have to keep a certain cadence or rhythm. I could just kind of be in the flow as if we're having conversations and stuff. But the transition more so in this one was really understanding that like I'm on stage with this character, and I'm conversing with this character as if nobody's really out here as much.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the biggest thing, like not paying attention to the crowd. We're like poetry and music, when you're doing the call and response thing, you're like paying attention to people, you're looking at them.
I didn't even think about that. So it's like a complete, like when you're rapping, I've seen you perform, like there are literally points where you're like literally talking to the audience. Mm-hmm. And so that, or like with stand up or something, you would literally be doing that. So I didn't even think about that element. So you almost have to like learn to completely wall them off. Mm-hmm. So that's got to be fucking crazy.
Yeah. Because it's literally like it's literally like Curtis says it like it's a play is like literally you're playing, like we're playing together and like acting these roles to each other, for each other, but for their consumption, but as if they're not even there to like watch it. So like just being in that nuance has kind of been the thing that's kind of been like the shift and kind of like learning how to kind of like present myself creatively to a crowd and just being like, okay, they're not here and I'm doing this for this moment and I'm in the skin of this moment as if it's like a real thing, you know? So it's been really cool though. Like really kind of what has pulled out of me creatively and all that. I've really liked the process, but yeah, it's definitely been like, that's been the one big challenge in that. Good challenge really.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, definitely come down and see the play, man, for sure. Like I said, we're doing it all year round, but Curtis is also like, he's been doing a lot of work. Like this guy's a workhorse in the sense of like he's been trying to travel it to like other different cities and stuff like that too.
Ooh,
so
nice.
He's taking it really seriously, but he's a great playwright. Like if you haven't seen like a Journey to Life production, like I definitely recommend it because it's not like it ain't like no Tyler Perry stuff. Even though I didn't say in the plays, it's like this man puts thought into his stuff and it's not cliche or anything like that.
Tyler Perry.
Mr. Chocolate. Have you seen that? Have you seen that Atlanta episode?
No. Atlanta. You know, I need to get back into that one. I was really into it, and then it kind of fell off.
Yeah,
but
just off this conversation, you have to watch the episode with Mr. Chocolate. So,
what season is it?
It's the last season. So I think
okay, yeah. Like so I haven't seen that.
The third season, and like you can watch it by itself because it's kind of like almost like a standalone type thing.
Yeah.
But Donald Glover kind of takes like shots at Tyler Perry Studios and just kind of having it where like black people literally just support it because it's a black person production, but Tyler Perry, like Mr. Chocolate, doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, I've created this machine and it doesn't stop creating. I fucking die when I first say it. So you got to see that, literally.
Hey, I mean, the man keeps getting in that dress every time. So, I mean, I guess shout out to him for that. But
I felt bad because my little sister... My little sister, she when she came home. You know, I don't know if you know, but my sister lives in Nashville and all that.
Okay,
so she moved. She came back to the Quad Cities for the first time in a few years since she moved, and we were watching this Tyler Perry play called I think it was called The Last Straw. This film, it was terrible. And again, I felt bad because it was like this whole like bonding moment with like siblings where I'm like, this movie sucks.
Yeah.
And my sister's like, no, it gets better. And then she told me the ending. I'm like, the ending sounds cool, but why do you have to execute in this corny way? It just did not feel real. Like I think part of me now wants to just go back just to watch for funny purposes. But yeah, I said to say like it ain't a cliche play. It isn't.
I am not a fun person to watch movies with at all. Like I remember in high school we would like all get together and have watch parties, and I would just be shitting on the movie the whole. Like did you see 7 Pounds with Will Smith?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I mean I haven't seen it forever, but I thought it was like just a shitty movie. And like everybody's like all the women are there and they're all crying and like everybody's like really into it. I'm the whole time just like this movie's like, why is he doing that? This is so stupid. Like
he just get over it.
Yeah. What are the writers thinking?
No.
You're trying to convince me that he gave 7 pounds of his liver or his body or whatever and it actually worked? Yeah. Is that what you're telling me? The jellyfish and the ice did it? I'm just shitting all over it.
It's like he spent his whole checking account on getting that jellyfish. He knew he was cooked after. He's like, if this doesn't work, I'll be pissed.
Right.
Because I don't got money for rent no more.
That wouldn't be worth. Yeah,
that should be a plot twist film, just like where he wakes up and the jellyfish actually dies before.
Yeah,
he think it's like fuck.
But they took all of his organs out still, so he's blind and like he doesn't have a kidney. He's like, God damn, I can't drink coffee. I can't do fucking anything.
Just pissed.
Yeah. Just falls out of him.
He's like, damn, I thought this was gonna happen.
He's in a wheelchair. I can't even remember what they all take out of him, but like he's in a wheelchair. He can't even push it. He's like,
my man's Dr. Xavier without the cool telepathic powers.
The sequel is called No Pounds. 0 pounds.
0 pounds.
Oh shit. That's great. Funny. Aubrey, it's been a hell of a time, man. I always love having you on the pod. This is like fucking your 7th, 8th time.
I was gonna say you literally kind of like had me on this for like a span of like almost like 6 years. Like it's crazy to think about.
It is wild. Go watch those first episodes.
Seriously.
See our growth.
No, I think that'd be dope. Definitely.
I need to start doing that more, because I had Peter Stockdale on the podcast last time, and I've had him on a couple times too, and I've been on his podcast and stuff as well. So I was like, I should go back and listen to those and see the transformation. Aubrey, where can people find your book? And if there's anything else, I know you said you have your shows coming up, but if there's anything else you want to plug, this is the time, my friend.
Yeah, so I mean, you can buy copies of my book from my website, MrAubs.com, like MisterAubs. So I've been doing a good job on like keeping that kind of domain where people can get books, merchandise, and all that.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely check out the website, and if you need help getting to the website, like you can find me on IG as Mr. Aubs too, and all that. So yeah, check out and kind of support, and whenever I come back to Des Moines and all that, hopefully I'll know once in advance to put it on my social medias and all that, as opposed to like last minute. So I'm usually good at that in other places though. So yeah, definitely check it out and keep up with that.
Hell yeah. Like I said, it's been a couple months since I read, but I personally really enjoyed the book. Like you said, I think if someone is going through grief or wants to hear some kind of things related to that, I think it's worth it. I think it'll touch you in a way.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Hell yeah. Guys, Macau Stars podcast, we're not doing it quite as frequently because, I do game streams. I do I'm doing more writing. So, like, it's not going to be as consistent, but we'll be up there every once in a while. I think next week I'm going to do a little essay type episode, and I think I'm going to try to do more of those essay type things.
That would be dope.
Hell yeah. Just talk about, like, political stuff or anarchism or whatever. Try to just kind of educate people in a way, or, like, give my opinions on things.
That'd be dope.
Hell yeah. So definitely check that out. Otherwise, we're doing gaming streams. I think when this post will already be started, but I'm going to try to September, October. I go ham. So how October is like Halloween month. We fucking expand that shit. So we start our shit in September. So I'm going to be playing horror games. I'm going to be watching horror movies, and like Halloween is like our Christmas, man. Because so it's awesome. But hell yeah. Otherwise, keep tuning into our shit, and have a good night, everybody.
Yep. Thanks,
Peace.
man. Peace.